Hello people of YouTube, I'm John and I'm back again with another product spotlight. And today we have a locomotive that's in HO scale. So let's go over to the workbench and have a look. Alright, so here's what we're looking at today. This is an Atlas GP38-2 from Atlas's Trainman series. It comes packaged in a cradle, and it's actually screwed in at the bottom into the fuel tank. I've never been really crazy about this kind of setup, but I've also never had an Atlas locomotive that was screwed in like this come damaged in the box. So, also in the box, we have exploded view drawings, and then a product registration card, additional warranty information, and a DCC quick start guide. And it also comes with a parts bag. On Atlas's website, I counted 9 different paint schemes, including an undecorated. Each of the road names came with 2 different numbers except for one of them, which came with only 1 number. The Silver Series, which is DCC ready, goes for $159.95. And the Gold Series goes for $244.95. The GP38-2 is basically a GP38 that has had the electrical systems and some of the mechanical components upgraded so that they have better traction and they pollute less. The Silver Series of this model, which is the DCC ready one, comes with an 8-pin plug so that you can install a decoder just by plug and play. And it's also worth mentioning that the fuel tank will vary depending on the prototype. Some have a 2,600 gallon fuel tank, others have a 3,600 gallon fuel tank. I have scrutinized the paint and found it to be very good. All the lines on this model have very crisp separation points. And the logo, the GATX logo, and all the associated writing is legible and very sharp. The only markings on the model that were not legible were the tiniest markings, like these little warning labels. I wasn't able to read any of that. Now, because this is a Trainman series model, it's not going to have a lot of the additional detail, like in the trucks, and it'll be very evident when we look at the ends of the locomotive, what I'm talking about. All right, so looking at the front here and around the cab, you can probably see inside there's a cab figure. But what you can also see is there's no sunshade. Also, looking at the nose, you'll notice that there are no separately applied grab irons. Normally on a model like this, if it's in Atlas's Master Series, you'll have separately applied grab irons. Trainman models don't have that level of detail. So this would be a really excellent model for somebody who wants to super detail it. One thing I did notice that I thought was especially good are these little stripes, sort of safety stripes along the stairway up to the walkway there. The steps have a very clean white stripe. And something else I noticed, and I just mentioned it, I alluded to it a second ago when we were looking at the side of the model, is how clean the paint job is. There's no fuzziness on any of these separation lines. It's a very sharp paint job and looks great. Something else to mention while we're looking at this is the fact that it has a knuckle coupler down here. The logo across the front of the nose is very crisp and looks excellent. And you might be able to tell that they've added dimples where the grabs would be, so that if you're going to go ahead and detail this model yourself, the dimples are already there. Figure I'd show you this side since we're looking at the front. This is a separately applied horn, by the way. That looks pretty good. All right, and looking at the Fireman side, you can see also on this side the paint job is crisp and clean, just like the engineer's side. You can see the blower bulge here behind the Fireman's seat there, or I suppose conductor's seat, depending how you look at it. That's your conductor. They called him a fireman on the Atlas website, but usually on modern operations, that's your conductor. If you look, you can see there's a bell down here, And there's actually some piping detail, which I was a little surprised to see on a Trainman series model. And then I didn't mention this on the other side because I wanted to have something to talk about on this side. If you look down in here, you can see that they've picked out some details around the fuel tank with some red paint. That always looks good. Looking at the rear of the model, you can see the details about the same as it is on the front of the model. And it's probably a little bit more evident here, looking at it from this angle, that there are little dimples along the side where the ladder would be, where you would drill out for your grab irons. And since we're working our way around the model, I figured I'd show you this angle as well. And this is the final 3/4 view we'll look at. It's usually how I do this, just working our way all the way around. And yeah, it's just, like I said before, a really sort of clean looking paint scheme. The blue and black and white pinstriping really, I think, work well together. So looking at the top of the model, you can see that these look like molded fans. Looks like they have pretty decent depth. The dynamic brake fan also is a molded fan. And not surprisingly, all of the lift rings are just molded on. And then we have our separately applied horn over here. All right, it's time for my favorite part, where we get to run the locomotive. So let's start it up and see how it does. Now, something worth mentioning while it's getting through the startup sequence is this is an ESU, what they call Essential Sound Unit. That's what this decoder model is. So it doesn't have all the functions that a version 5, for example, might have. But it still works really well, and it still sounds good too. You can tell that this locomotive has the same 5-pole skewed armature motor that the better Atlas Gold series locomotives have. It has really good low speed capability. So we're going to take a closer look at the lights now. The lights are directional and come on with your F0 key. As you can see, that's a golden white LED back in there, and the number boards come on with the headlight. And looking at the rear headlight, same thing. The number boards come on with the headlight. Looks good. I am really impressed with the paint job on it. Besides being a cool paint scheme, which I think I mentioned a couple of times, it just really appeals to me for some reason. The way it's done is really good because all those separation lines are very crisp and even, and the paint is applied very crisply and evenly with no gaps or voids or anything that I saw. So that part turns out to me to be really good. And I'm just excited because it's nice to see what's considered a budget model that looks and runs this good. So good job, Atlas, and I'll see you next time.